Okay, so today we are going to take some nutrition questions. I already have two that you guys submitted in the poll earlier, so I'm going to start with these two questions while you guys are thinking of questions. You can go ahead and put them in the chat. Just anything you have a question about related to nutrition, because I know people have lots of questions about nutrition, and we don't usually get the opportunity to talk about the evidence behind them. So the first question is, do you have any guidance or resources on how to use food as medicine in our daily lives? Which is always a great question. Um, and the first thing that I would say is you need to have some good resources to keep yourself up with the latest in terms of nutrition. My first resource, and I'm going to send everyone out a list of this, so you will get a list of all these things I talk about, so don't worry about taking notes or anything, but is a basic nutrition database, which is the Linus Pauling Institute. You've probably heard of the Linus Pauling Institute. It's a great place to look up, say, vitamin C or selenium and figure out how much you need and where you can get it. There's just so much information. It's always up to date. So that's the first resource. The second resource would be Harvard Nutrition Source, which is more of an applied nutrition. So they take the information in the Linus Pauling Institute and then tell you how to apply it to your diet. They also do a lot of things like, a new fad diet will come out, like for instance, when keto became big, they'll cover that and tell you what the science says on that. And they have a really great newsletter that you can sign up for, or you can follow them on Twitter. So those are my two resources for finding good nutrition information. I can also recommend some experts to follow. I would say David Katz, Walter Willett, who's actually the source of information for the Harvard Nutrition Source. He's the founder. And then Dariush Mustafarian. And again, I will send you that information, so don't worry about taking it. And of course, you can follow me as well. And I'm easy to find on Twitter, Instagram at PhD_Leigh, or you can just Google me and find me on LinkedIn and Facebook, Leigh Frame. Okay. The next question, and I think this actually relates to the first question quite nicely, is if I have any insight for food or beverages that are especially helpful or those that we should avoid during, say, COVID, or for those of us who have pollen allergies and now it's springtime. So the first thing I want to say is that I don't like to have a blanket good or bad foods, because I don't look at food that way. Instead, I would recommend that you try and follow the healthy eating plate, which is found on the Harvard Nutrition Source. So another reason to go there. And the healthy eating plate is basically, they took my plate and they put a little bit more research behind it. So it's updated. They recommend that you have water as your drink. There's no recommendation necessarily for having to have dairy or having to have animal proteins. But it just gives you an idea of what your meal should probably look like. And it's mostly plants and some lean proteins. So I find that a very helpful way to look at how you want to eat. So as long as you're filling your plate in something that looks somewhat like that, you are eating healthy. And I don't worry too much about, okay, you had dessert today. Not a huge deal as long as you didn't get a bunch of sugar and fat in the rest of your day, and it's something that you're not doing every day. So I wouldn't say that anything is necessarily good or bad. I also just want to flash back to, I guess it was the first talk I gave about nutrition for a healthy immune system. So first, just remember that you don't boost your immune system. That's a misnomer. You don't want to non-specifically boost it because you could have something like autoimmunity. That's not healthy. What we want is a balanced immune system, an immune system that has all the building blocks it needs to respond if need be. And how do we do that? Well, we start by having a healthy diet. And that really is no different than what I would say for a healthy diet for any person, right? You want to get a diverse diet, lots of vegetables and fruits, eating the rainbow, right? So the more different colors you get, the more different nutrients you're getting from your diet, including white. So don't forget about white and colors that maybe aren't in the rainbow that you see in the sky. You want to maintain a healthy weight. So you don't want to be too thin or overweight, because that can actually affect your immune system quite substantially. And we will send the Nutrition for Healthy Immune System handout out again, so you all can review that. So those are sort of my general tips. Now, in terms of COVID, I'm not going to make any additional comments beyond that. I really think just having a healthy diet, making sure you're eating a diverse diet, and you're eating enough food every day should really take care of that. But for pollen allergies, I actually can give a specific tip in the fact that if you have raw, unfiltered honey, what you're doing is actually ingesting pollen. And by taking pollen in orally, it causes your immune system to be tolerant. It's kind of like a vaccine, but in the opposite way. So instead of getting your immune system ready to react to it, it tells your immune system, no, this is fine. You don't need to react to that. So anything you take in orally, your body generally develops a tolerance for. Unless there's something specifically wrong with the way your immune system is reacting, and then you have a food allergy. So as long as you don't have an allergy to something, taking it orally will create that immune tolerance. So every morning when I have my green tea, I put a little bit of local raw unfiltered honey in there, and that way I'm getting my pollen. And it has actually immensely helped my allergies because they were very mild. If you have intense allergies, that might not do a lot, but it certainly will help, and it's not going to hurt anything, right? It's very inexpensive, it's delicious, and if you're just having like a teaspoon of honey a day, it's a very relatively low sugar, so you don't need to worry too much about that. Plus, adding it into your green tea. Green tea has tons of health benefits, so there's another bonus, and you're getting another plant in your diet. So the more plants you eat, the better. One more quick comment on that, and then I'll go to the questions in the chat. So I think we mentioned this casually in another conversation. I don't think we've mentioned it here, but in terms of gut health, one of the things that seems to come out over and over again is the number of plants that you eat is what's really important. How many different kinds of plants that you eat. And if you can try and eat at least 30 plants a week, 30 different plants a week, that seems to be a cutoff that really shows that your gut is healthy. And I know Janet recently did the 30 plant a week challenge, and I don't know how it went. If you want to share? Good. All right. Excellent. It's not that difficult. You just need to make sure you're not like, don't eat broccoli twice a week, right? Eat broccoli only once a week. As much as I will tell you that broccoli is fantastic for you, right? You just have to have a diverse diet and switch it up. And thinking of it in that way, and maybe doing a 30 plant a week challenge, I think will help you change your habits and get out of that I'm eating the same thing over and over again. Janet, do you have a comment?
I was just going to say, there are a lot of people, if you're like me and you're more vegetarian than meatitarian, it's not difficult to make that 30 different plants in 7 days, because when I look back at my I've been keeping it in my gratitude journal, and so when I look back at it, it's like, oh well, okay, I maxed out on Monday and Tuesday, and then towards the end of the week it sort of peters out. Not that I'm not eating the same things, because I make like a green smoothie that has everything from beans to parsley in it, and mango and banana, good things like that. But then I also, in the morning, I have something called, I call it a seed bowl, so it's got everything in it from hemp seeds, chia seeds, a nut butter, some, berries and other things. So if you do stuff like that, it's not going to be difficult.
Yeah, you also bring up a really good point, and I do this as well. I know a lot of people eat the same thing during the week for breakfast, which can limit the number of plants you eat. But if you try and get as many plants into that breakfast, it doesn't maybe matter as much. So like for breakfast every day during the week, I have the same thing. I have blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, sometimes strawberries, sometimes mango, with cottage cheese, cultured cottage cheese, so it has live active cultures in it, hemp seeds, walnuts, almonds. That I have for breakfast every single day. Berries are phenomenal for you, so I feel like it's okay that I'm eating it every single day, and I'm maybe limiting my exposure. At least I'm getting 3 to 4 different berries and maybe some mango in there. So I just think it's a different way maybe of thinking about eating than what most people think about. All right, so I'm going to get the questions in the chat now, which... All right. So how many vitamins and supplements one takes is too much? Oh, that's a great question. So I am actually very biased in this statement, in that I think you should get your nutrition from food, if at all possible. And the reason that I think that, it's not just like, oh, food is fantastic, even though it is. There's actually science behind it. So there's a lot of science showing that you absorb the nutrition and utilize it better from food than you do from supplements. Here's an instance. In one research study, a large amount of lutein was given in a supplement. So just pure lutein in a capsule, you took that. And they did what's called a positive control, thinking that they're going to see absorption of lutein. They used eggs because eggs have lots of lutein in them, and we know that when you eat eggs, you absorb the lutein. So that's their positive control. Now, for a negative control, meaning they didn't think they were going to see a lot of lutein absorption, they used avocado because it's relatively low in lutein. But what they found was that the highest absorption was from the egg, so much higher than the supplement, even though the supplement had like 10 times more lutein in it. And craziness, avocado was right up there with egg, despite the fact that it had small amounts in it because it was absorbed so well and the fats that came with it helped to be absorbed. Actually, more lutein was absorbed from the avocado than the supplement, which had like 100 times more lutein in it than the avocado. So there's actual science saying you should try and get your nutrition from food. That being said, for certain nutrients, or if you have really high needs for a certain nutrient for some reason, medication use, for instance, or as we get older and maybe it gets harder to eat enough food, that's where supplements come in. So I would definitely try and get it through your food, work with your healthcare provider to see what you aren't getting through your food, and then supplement there. So that, I don't know if that completely answers the question of what's too much, but I guess avoid supplements unless you absolutely need them. Right? We can try and get it from food. Let's get it from food. Okay, well, this is a hard question. What is the optimum percentage of visceral fat? Is 10% of your BMI good or bad? So that's interesting. I don't typically talk about visceral fat in percentage to BMI. I talk about in percent of your body. So if you're doing like getting on an in-body machine, or if you're getting on one of those scales that does the electronic analysis of your body fat percentage, that's what I would think about. And that's going to depend greatly. Actually, the answer is different between men and women. It's different between your age. I can give you a general guideline that women are usually somewhere between 24 and 36% fat, with the cutoff of 24 being kind of very fit. So once you're below that, you're considered a very fit. And then for men, it's typically lower than that. But I hesitate to even answer that because it is going to be slightly different. And you really, I am the type of person who really focuses on how you feel, both meaning, do you feel well? And also meaning, are you fitting in your clothes? Having these metrics can be really useful if you're trying to get better, see where your body fat is now and then try and reduce that. That can be helpful, but it can also be just as helpful to say, all right, I want to fit in to one size smaller, or I want to be able to wear these jeans that maybe are a slimmer cut in the same size. So have some sort of goal that you can monitor without necessarily having to look at numbers, and then also monitoring how you're feeling, because it's really easy to go on the other extreme, like you lost too much weight or you're not eating enough to get all the nutrients that you need. So be really careful with dieting, and I'm always quite cautious about saying people that, when you're losing weight, a lot of people just tell you, oh, you just have to cut calories. And while technically that's true, right? Calories in equals calories out is technically true. There's so much more to it than that. And there's so much more about nutrition and nourishment beyond calories that I really feel like listening to yourself is the number one most important thing. Oh, question about the honey in the tea. They take it at night. Would it be better in the morning? It shouldn't matter when you have it, because it's still doing the same thing. It'd be like, if you had to have your vaccine multiple times a week, it wouldn't matter what time during that day you had to have it. So think about it that way. You just need to have kind of a regular exposure to the pollen and the honey to keep that immune reaction low. Ooh, do spices count? Spices totally count as plants, and in fact, they're fantastic for you. The more herbs and spices you can eat, the better. I always think of them as kind of like hyper-concentrated vegetables. So the health benefits of vegetables, but it's just hyper-concentrated because you only need like a teaspoon of these herbs or spices to get massive amounts of what we call phytonutrients. And these are the chemicals found in plants that have all the health benefits. So the reasons they prevent cancer, the reasons you don't get cardiovascular disease. So the more of the herbs and spices you can get, the more concentrated they are. And that's similar to, I believe I mentioned to this group, or was it another group, about sprouts. So Broccoli, fantastic for you. Lots of chemopreventive properties. It's going to prevent cancer. But you know what's even better than broccoli? Broccoli sprouts, little baby broccoli plants, because they contain 100 times more of the same chemical as broccoli. So sometimes having a smaller version is actually better for you. And I think that's a great example. Herbs and spices are one of those. And beans. Okay, so beans totally count as a plant, and they're fantastic for you, especially your gut health. I could just talk all day about how much I love beans. They're so good for you, and they can be a really great, inexpensive food. So it's a great way to add some protein and some fiber to your diet with relatively low price, but also they can be really convenient. So a lot of times we talk about canned food as being high in sodium. So you, first of all, you can get the low sodium version, but you can also rinse them. There's actually been research showing that if you take beans that are canned and you rinse them, you significantly reduce the sodium. So just give them a quick rinse. Yeah, exactly. You don't have to cook your beans from scratch. You can if you want to, especially now that we've got the Instapot, it makes it a lot easier. But that's one of the time savers that I use is canned beans. Give it a quick rinse. Now it's not high in sodium, and I can just throw them on my salad or whatever I'm making. And it's quite easy and inexpensive, right? What's a can of beans, like 70 cents? Very inexpensive. So yay beans, definitely get them at least once a week. Oh, maximum daily sugar intake and how does it differ from men to women? So I don't personally think that there is a difference from men to women. It doesn't seem to be that way, at least in the literature. What it is, you really need to base it on the percent of your calories. So that's kind of a hard calculation to do, but each person has a different calorie amount they need to take. So that's part of the reason it needs to be by percent, right? We can't just say 1 teaspoon for everyone, because 1 teaspoon for someone who weighs 150 pounds is very different than someone who weighs 250 pounds. So if you know how many calories you intake, what the literature says is 6% or less. Now, the recommendations from the dietary guidelines for American will tell you 10% or less. And there's some indication that 7% is also okay. So there's a little bit of leeway. I would say your goal is going to be 6% of your calories or less from sugar. And you all probably know that calories in sugar are pretty high. Sugar is pretty calorie dense. So it's not a lot. You want to keep it as low as possible, but then again, also don't forget about it, right? I feel like people make a big deal about nutrition and they get so uptight, and you're counting everything and monitoring everything, and that's probably not healthy for you either. So be a little intuitive, try and use sugar in ways that you need to use sugar, right? You know, if you're having a dessert, you need it to be sweet. If you are putting a little honey in your tea, well, you're getting your pollen in there too, so you need that. But you don't need it in tomato sauce. You don't need it in a lot of other savory foods that for some reason they just add it to in the processed food industry. So that's where I really try to point people is at the added sugar, which now is on the nutrition facts label. So now it's easy for you. All you have to do is turn it around, look at the nutrition facts label, look at added sugar. That's what you want to avoid. I don't worry too much about the other sugar. Like, I'm not worried about peaches. Eat peaches, they're good for you. Maybe you don't want to eat like 10 peaches, but you'd be hard pressed to eat a lot of peaches too because of all the fiber. So generally just be intuitive, listen to your body, and avoid things that are added to foods for no reason. Oh. So if you're fructose intolerant, so you can't have the honey to get the pollen, you can actually get pollen. You can buy bee pollen and have that taken as a supplement. But obviously, as my bias is to get things from food, so my preference would be for you to have a little honey in your tea. But if that's not an option for you, then that's where supplements come in. Oh, a New York Times headline: a changing gut microbiome may predict how well you age. Question: how do we know the state of our gut bacteria? It's a great question. It really is a great question. It's something we debate all the time. It's a field that I research and I'm quite passionate about, and I know that there is a lot that will be coming down the pathway in terms of making people's health better from what we know about the gut microbiome. However, we are not quite there yet. It is really difficult for us to do research on this topic still, let alone taking into clinical practice. And what I tell my students is, think about why you want to know the composition of the gut microbiome for your patients. What is that going to add? What is it going to change in terms of your recommendations? And in a lot of cases, it's absolutely nothing. The recommendations will still be the same. The number one indicator of gut health and gut microbiome health is diversity of diet. So that's not going to change no matter what I see in your microbiome. The number of plants, that's not going to change depending on what I see in your microbiome. So while you could do slight tweaks, and I actually am consulting with a company right now to build that exact platform to be able to do these recommendations, do slight tweaks, I will promise you that the recommendations I'm giving add up to eat a diverse diet, eat lots of plants. This one might say maybe you want to increase your blueberry intake slightly, but in general, just eat blueberries. So while I think in the future that will change and we will have enough information that it could be quite valuable, at this point, I think it's fascinating and it's something you might want to do for your own personal interest. But I don't think it will really change how healthcare providers work with you, or it will change your dietary recommendations. Oh, Yael, Janet she wants your smoothie and seed bowl recipe. I think we all want it. So if you could just send that around. Oh, the 30 plants do include both vegetables and fruits.
I'm happy to.
Please, yes. Absolutely any plant is included in that. Though I will tell you that a lot of the research is starting to show that really vegetables are the most important part of that. And most Americans, the plants that they eat are fruits. And we know that most Americans are not healthy. So we definitely want to make sure we're getting our vegetables, focus on those first. And then fruit can be, I like to have something sweeter at breakfast. It's a little harder for me to have a savory meal in the breakfast first thing. So having the berries is really helpful. Or if you have a craving for something sweet, that's where fruit really comes in, or just to round out your meal. But you don't want to rely solely, like you don't have all 30 of your plants be fruit. I'd say maybe like a third of your plants at most be fruit.
So, Leigh, are you frozen or?
No, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm looking at questions.
Okay.
Great question about the honey. It does need to be local, actually, preferably, because that honey is going to contain the pollen that you're being exposed to. And we know that the honey from California is going to have the pollen for California. So if you're in DC, that might not be right for you. The other reason to have local honey is because honey is often counterfeited. It's kind of a crazy term to think about, but a lot of the honey that you buy in the store, particularly from the big companies, they have no way of knowing for sure if it's actually honey or if it's a mix of honey and corn syrup or something else. So if you get it from a local, I know, Mara, it's scary. If you get it from a local hive, this is honey. And also it's a little bit harder to buy raw, unfiltered honey from larger producers as well. So another reason to get local. And then plus you get to meet someone, right? You get to meet someone who has a cool hive, hopefully at the farmer's market. All right, I think we are running a little bit short on time. Janet, can I take one more question?
Yes, one more.
Okay, I'm going to take this one because I have an opinion on it. What is your opinion on the keto diet? So I think the keto diet is a very powerful tool. It can be quite helpful to reset the gut microbiome if you have some sort of digestive issues. It can be really helpful for people who have epilepsy. But that is really it. That is the clinical indication for keto. It is not something that you should be on long term because it's typically a low fiber diet. And if you've ever come to anything I've ever said, you know that fiber is amazing. We need fiber for the gut microbiome. It is so important. So being on a chronically low fiber diet is unhealthy. My personal recommendation would be to be on the keto diet for no more than 6 months, definitely no more than a year. Because that's when you're really going to start to see irreversible damage to the gut microbiome, which in some cases that's the whole point, right? If your gut microbiome is unhealthy, we're trying to reset it. That's one reason that keto may be used. And it's used in patients that have irritable bowel disease or inflammatory bowel syndrome for that purpose. But for most of us, that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for weight loss, or people think that it could be anti-inflammatory, and perhaps it is, but just keep in mind that it's a tool to be used for the short term, not a long-term lifestyle choice. And I think that's a good place to end.
So before we move on to Mara, I just need to give you all a testimonial. I've worked with Dr. Frame for, is it 3 years now, Leigh?
Yes.
So she was the one that really hipped me to the gut microbiome and the fact that, folks, the majority of your immune system is in your gut. So we need to take care of it. And that's why I started putting things like beans in my smoothie. I put butter beans in. They're soft. When they're pulverized, you can't tell the difference or really tell what it is. It's just something else that's in there. So treat your body, treat your gut well, eat your fiber. Your immune system will be happy for you.
Thank you very much, Jane.
Before we move on, can I get an answer to my question, please, about the COVID vaccine protocol? Appreciate it.
Dr. Kogan isn't here today, so we don't have that information at hand. But I know who this is, and we had an email exchange about it. And how about next week I call his office and try and get that information for you?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, Mara.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. So nice to have you and see you here today. So we are going to move into the mind, body, spirit. I loved how Dr. Frame talked about us listening to our intuition, such an important thing for us to do. So we want to spend the next 30 minutes doing just that, tapping into our intuitive guidance and kind of stepping from our fight or flight and the mind. And the mind's a wonderful thing, right? It keeps us actively engaged. It helps us take a look at data. It helps us kind of plan for the future. But it also keeps us stuck in intense emotions like fear, anxiety. And so we need to help move our body over to what we know as rest and digest. And that's when we start to get that clear, intuitive guidance about what's taking place with our body. And of course, as you know, your body is a team player with you. So it's constantly kind of trying to get your attention about what it needs in order to be able to really move forward on whatever might be taking place. So we want to recognize our body as a team player. What a wonderful thing. We provide the right nutrients, we eat the 30 different plants, and we help it to optimize. And then we also take a time to be able to listen to what it's trying to message to us and to be able to hear that and discern what we need to do next. So a great thing is being able to intuitively figure out what we want to eat from a nutritional perspective. And then now that's exactly what I'd like us to do, is explore an exercise that allows us to intuitively connect in mind, body, and spirit. So we're going to do a Qigong exercise. Qigong is Chinese, and I had the honor of going to China to be able to learn with Qigong masters, which was amazing. And when we start to work with Qigong or yoga or any of these kind of movement exercises, we're working with the subtle energy that's within us. And that subtle energy system, and this is something that I think is fascinating, is before we had any kind of medical system or healthcare system, there was this recognition that there is subtle energy within us. And so no matter what culture you come from, if you go back to the ancient times, there has always been this understanding that there is this energy within us, and we have the ability to work with it and understand what it's trying to message us. So I love that in the fact that in the yogic tradition, they call it prana. In the Chinese tradition, they call it qi. Of course, here in the US, we call it energy, but all of these cultures understand that we have this subtle energy system. So I want to provide a little bit of background before we do the Qigong, just to provide the framework for us moving forward. A couple of things is, I say Qigong. Many people here in the US recognize this as Tai Chi. So if you understand Tai Chi is a form of Qigong. So Qigong's the umbrella name for it. Now, Qigong, similar to yoga, is going to ask you, and so I'm going to ask you to do this as well. It's not just about the movements that we'll be going through. It's about having the visualization to go with it. And so if you know the chakra system, you're aware that in the chakra system, there are 7 energy centers. So you're probably familiar with that. And those 7 energy centers go directly up our spine. And so you have a sense of that. In Chinese, they believe that there are 3 Dantians, which are energetic centers as well. And so those 3 energy centers, and I'm going to just take a moment to hopefully share my screen with you. So hopefully everyone's seeing this right now. Is that good? Okay. So these 3 energy centers are located in the head. Actually, it's a little more up to the heart area as well, and then down at the lower part of your body. So we're going to go through these Dantians. As we go through, this first Dantian connects with the spirit realm, to something larger than ourselves. So it might come as a religious context for you, which is wonderful, but it can also just be that recognition of something much larger than just us or just our human field. And also, because I'm also ordained, what I love about this concept is the thought that we are all divine beings. We're all part of the universe. So the top Dantian is the place where the energy enters into the human field, the human body. And then that energy, as you know, is within you. So that's all divine energy. So that divine energy is within us as human form, but its connection, its ability to come in is through this top Dantian. The middle Dantian is the bridge. It is the energy center between us. So it's the energy center, the bridge between the divine coming in and how we're able to manifest it in the human plane, in the human realm, here on the earth. So what a wonderful concept, right? Right at our heart center, just a little bit lower, is where that energy center is to combine the divine with how we're engaging in the human plane. A wonderful thing. And then finally, the lower Dantian is all about how we manifest, how we take our spirit and we do something here on the human plane, how we manifest, how we get things going, how we get actions done, and how we combine. And so both in the yogic tradition as well as the Chinese tradition, we need to be in alignment. And when we're in alignment, which means that the top energy center is moving, the middle and the lower, when they're all starting to move and be in alignment, we can really start to get things accomplished here on the human plane. I hope that was helpful. So with that in mind, you can see that those Dantians are, first of all, there's blockages that occur. And so today's exercise is going to be about really working visually as well as through movement to release those blockages. And when I say blockages, those blockages can be from emotional situations, mental thoughts or belief systems that are keeping us constricted. It can be a lack of connection to the divine and the awness and the miracles of us being alive. And it can also all be physical. And in reality, they're all connected. So it's not really that they're separate, but they're all connected. So we want to be able to work to clear this. Okay, so we're going to get started. Couple of things to consider. First of all, I can't really be with you, so I want you to be safe. So please, if you want to sit in a chair, that's great. We are going to be moving. So if you have a chair that doesn't necessarily have the arms to it, that can be really beneficial to be able to move and work with the Dantians. The exercises mostly are for standing. So if you're able to stand, that's great. I just want to say that as we go through this, if you feel as if you're not going to be balanced or if you feel a little off center, we want you then just to take a moment to sit and continue the exercises through sitting as well. Now, as we do this, please know that the Dantians and doing Qigong is very flexible. So you don't want any rigidity. So it's best that you're just kind of having some flexibility so that energy can move freely. So that means if you do a 90-degree angle, it's hard for it to move. So allowing it to move is wonderful. And if you're standing, you want to just have a slight bend in your knees to allow that movement to take place too. Remember, again, we're going to be visualizing. So as you visualize, you might sense the openness, the lightness that comes in, the expansion of your energy centers, or you might see it. So if I say focus on your energy center, it might be that you see maybe a light center, maybe the lightness. So that's good too. However you feel, sense, see, hear, the energy center is all good. All right, so if you're ready, we're going to get started. And then at the end of this, if we have time, we're going to sit down again and just kind of do a bit of a meditation. All right, so we are going to start with the head. And so we're going to do a few movements. And the first thing I want you to do is, if you're standing, is you want to be hip distance apart. And again, have a little bend in your knees. So hip distance apart, and a little bend in the knees is great. Okay, now for these first ones, you might want to take off your glasses like I do. We want to start by just warming up those hands. You know, your hands have that healing energy that comes from your heart center. And so you want to just take a moment to come in and center yourself, warm up those hands, and bring it in just for a moment. Taking a deep cleansing breath in, centering, letting go of the day, setting the intention to work with your Dantians, releasing any blockages. Good. All right, so we're going to start, and like light as a feather. Don't worry about your hair. You're going to just take your fingers and we're going to open up the first energy center here. So very lightly moving it down the back of your head and just gently going around. Gently, gently, gently. You might sense or notice some tingling as you do this. You want to do it about 9 times. So again, you might sense or notice tingling. You want to visualize that energy center opening and expanding. So just some ability to open that energy center up. Good. And then the next ones that we're going to do is, I want you to be a little deeper now, just deeper going through, opening up those energy centers. You have meridians that are in your head. And so we just want to do just kind of a light massage, opening that up, taking time to visualize that energy center opening up, connecting up to the divine. Good, so 9 times. Perfect. Unfortunately, I can't see you, but hopefully that worked. And so then what we're going to do is take our thumbs. See how you see your thumbs like this? We're going to place them up against our nose. And to open up your Dantian, you're just going to push them down and under your cheekbones. And again, visualizing that energy center opening up, clearing and letting go. Letting go. Opening that center up and letting it go. 9 times. Good. And whenever that feels complete, we're going to next come to our ears. Your ears have all the different meridians, organs listed, provided on it. So what you want to do is just take a moment and just gently, you're not going to go into the ear canal. Don't do that. Just take a moment to kind of stretch your ear. Again, you might feel tingling, might sense something. And then just putting pressure inside the ear, all around it. This is a wonderful thing to do at like 3 in the afternoon to energize yourself. Visualizing the expansion of your top Dantian. Good. And then we're going to move over to the other side of the ear, over here. Again, pay attention to your body. Sensing or noticing anything is wonderful to do. Okay, and then the last one before we leave our head is to let open our ability to express who we are divinely. So who we are at our center, our authentic self, that sometimes gets stuck here in our throat between our head and our heart. So just clearing that, so just gently start to move down your, gently going down. Just gently moving. Again, you might feel, sense, or notice the energy leaving there. Good. All right, so next we're going to move from the head. We're going to now move to the heart chakra in the second Dantian. So we want to come here, and the first thing you want to do is take your left hand, put it over to your right shoulder, and there's a little indentation here. So now we want to see this center start to open up. So remember to visualize this center opening or sensing that it's opening. So right here, you're going to begin to move in a circle. Opening it up, doing this 9 times. The heart holds our compassion. It's the bridge between the upper and lower chakras, or excuse me, upper and lower Dantian. And then we're going to come over here. It also holds forgiveness. So you want to switch over, right hand over into this little area. Can feel or sense that being released. Good. Okay. Might feel that too, right? Next is we want to open up our arms. So you take your left hand over your hand and you're going to go up the top of your shoulder, up here, and then down bottom. So it's up the outer part of your arm, and then down. So our arms are connected to our heart, to that heart Dantian. And so when we open the energy here, we allow our healing energy to start to flow. So just allowing that to happen. So 9 times if you can. And then we're going to come over to the left side. And we're going to go up our arm and down the back. Up, down. 3. Again, visualizing this center opening up. Good. Okay. Now we can get a lot of other people's heart energy strings tied to us right here. So we want to be able to release that and let that go. So I want you to envision all that energy that you want to get released. Any grief, any kind of energetic, emotional things that you no longer wish to hold. And we want to clear it from the core of our body and right around our heart. So what you want to do is just flick right here, going down your chest. Just flick it off. Do that 9 times, visualizing that energy being released. Good. All right. So you can kind of feel or sense how that is now. Doesn't that feel more expansive? Hopefully more light, hopefully. All right. So now we come down to the belly. So what we want to do now is place your right hand over your left on top of your belly button. And we're going to start off, we're going now into the lower Dantian. We're going to start off by very tiny circles. You really want to just envision opening this up. And as you do, you want to go broader and bigger. So go big, big, big as you do this. So just feeling and sensing that and then going all the way around. And then we're going to stop up at the top here and we're going to go back. So do the big, big, big circle all the way around. And then start to go smaller. Opening up this Dantian, visualizing that being open. Good. That's a wonderful one to do in the morning to kind of open up the belly and get ready for it. Okay, the next one is we're going to help the kidneys and we're going to do just a little more on the back. So what you want to do is have flat hands like this. And you want to just take a moment and you're going to, with your spine in the middle, you're going to go up your spine and around, up and around. So you're going to go up and around. And you can do this quickly. It helps energize the body. So just doing that quickly. Good. All right. And then finally, if you're standing or even if your feet are on the floor, your feet hold the organs and all of the systems. So when I do reflexology, it's about working with all the organs. So I want you to just take a moment to stand with your feet apart, little bend in your knee, and you're just simply going to come to the middle, balance in your feet. And when you're ready, I want you to move over to the right side and then move gently and slowly over to the left. And what you're doing is giving your whole body a bit of a massage right now, just helping to support all the organs. Good, and then move forward onto your toes and then gently to the back. Forward again and back. And then if you can, we're just going to circle gently around. Just circling around. Good, and when you're ready, stop and go the other direction. All the way around. Wonderful. And then just take a moment now to sit down. So find yourself sitting for just a moment. And as you do this, just gently close your eyes. Again, your body is a team player. So taking a moment just to feel or sense any changes within your body. Just noticing if you're sensing the energy moving. And for just a few moments, what we're going to do is a visualization again. You've just aligned all of your Dantians. So now in your mind's eye, in your imagination, I want you to find yourself safely and securely at the bottom of the ocean. You're a large boulder. Imagine that you're a large boulder at the bottom of the ocean. You're securely planted into the sand and into the rocks deep below. I want you to feel or sense the natural rhythm the back and forth, the very slow rhythm of the water, gently swaying back and forth. Allow anything that was a blockage to be washed away, released. Letting it go. You might notice that way up above on the ocean, the waves are crashing down. It's chaotic. But deep, deep below, you are safe. You're in alignment. And none of that matters. It's not impacting you. Feel that. Just take a moment more to release and let go of anything you no longer wish to have. Allowing it to be washed away. And then with a deep breath in all the way down to your belly, to a very slow exhale, releasing very slowly. And when you're ready, just gently coming back in by wiggling your fingers, wiggling your toes, and gently opening your eyes. Wonderful. Welcome back. Hopefully you did the alignment, you had the nutrition, hopefully you're feeling better. So any questions? Anything we can do for you? Wonderful. Well, I hope you enjoyed. Remember that it's all connected, so please pay attention to your mind, body, spirit. And then I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. I'm not sure if Janet has anything else she wants us to say.